What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Monday, October 30th. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM, also available online, sportstalk1051.com. Stream it up there. You got the app, take it on the go. Google and Alexa home devices, video stream also up and rolling, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Hopefully, all had a good weekend outside of your maybe favorite sports teams out there. But yeah, and hopefully you're ready to hit up a brand new work week here. Oh, if you're a Wisconsin sports fan, you're not the greatest of weekends there. Obviously, yesterday with Green Bay falling to Minnesota, also the Bucks falling to the Atlanta Hawks, Badger football losing to Ohio State. But hey, Badger hockey, men's hockey, down goes Minnesota, huh? Volleyball taking down the Gophers there too yesterday after the game, after the Packers game there. So at least we got that going for us, which is nice here. But what do we got on the good old game plan for us this morning? Going to talk a little green and golds with that loss yesterday. It's the same script. The script writers in the NFL got to come up with something different because it's the same flipping story every week for the Packers here. Slow first halves, not a lot going on, not hardly anything going on. Then second half, okay, a little bit, although they only scored one touchdown in the second half, but had plenty of other opportunities to do so towards the end there. But ultimately, falling to the Vikings. Now what? 1, 2, 3, fourth loss in a row here. And now they got the Rams coming up here at home, coming up this Sunday. So I know we're probably kind of like last week, gonna get a lot of venting, a lot of frustration, a lot of upsets. Fans out there, let's hopefully we're not yelling at each other like some were like last week on Facebook and all the social medias and all that stuff. But hopefully we won't go down there. But I'll tell you, after last night's game, I was talking to a couple people. I don't text during games. I don't do that, or I don't try to talk to anybody. Once in a while, I'll go on social media, and mostly it's for a venting sort of thing. But I was talking to a couple people after the game last night, and I'm just like, this is so kind of frustrating. I was actually talking to a couple of Minnesota fans out there, and I'm just like, okay, as an outsider, as an outsider being, obviously you don't have a horse in this race. You're not a Packers fan or anything like that. But like, what do you think's going on, and what are your thoughts from kind of out from the outside looking in on Green Bay, just to get a different perspective, and not just a Packer fans perspective. I wanted to get like perspectives from other people who aren't rooting for the Packers, and just kind of some common themes out there. But kind of a lot of the same stuff that we have all been saying out there, frustrating about. And yeah, it's not just one thing. It's not just a couple things. It's a boatload of stuff going on right now. Now, some fans probably still maybe being a little patient because, hey, you kind of knew heading into this year might not have been the greatest of seasons, and a lot of inexperience and that sort of thing. But I was thinking about it a little bit last night, and well, we'll hit that up coming up here in just a little bit. I've got thoughts on the defense and the offense and such, but we'll hit that up on the leadoff here in a few minutes. We'll throw in a little college football talk here with the Badgers falling to Ohio State. It felt like I was watching that game, and Badgers had some opportunities there. It's tied up, and then Ohio State goes up 17-10, and you thought, okay, still maybe could they potentially make this a game here. And for the longest time, it was close. It was there. First of all, Marvin Harrison Jr., if he's suited up in green and gold next year, I would be ecstatic. I don't care that, they've got Watson and Dobbs and Reed and that. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a member of the Packers next year. I would be ecstatic. But it felt like, and I don't know, but it felt like Badger fans, or even those who cover the Badgers, at least on social media, felt like there was more positives in this game, maybe in any other game at any point this season. It kind of felt like that from reading some of your stuff, reading some of the impressions out there on social media. Kind of, defense, although towards the end, struggling to stop the run and really struggling to stop the run there. But it felt like, at least those who cover the Badgers, it felt like there was more positive stuff to come out of this game. And, they still lost the game, so obviously that's not a positive. But compared to other stuff, there was like, okay, we could kind of, take some positive stuff out of this. Maybe defensive performance for some people out there, kind of holding their ground against Ohio State and such. But offense, and with Braylon Allen getting hurt and missing the game, and there was just the offense might be what it is at this point. And, it's only what 1, 2, 3, 4 more games left in the regular season here, so I mean, not much to really change up at this point in time. But dinged up offensive line or dinged up offense and such. But what were your impressions outside of the loss? I mean, did you take away? Or are you kind of the similar book? Because I was reading a lot of the beat writers and some of the writers who were covering the game and kind of talking about the Badgers and recapping it such, and factoring in some of the injuries and going up against Ohio State, one of the best teams in the country. There's some positives that some people took away. A lot of people who cover the Badgers took away from that game. So I'm curious to get fans' perspective on that game. Was there a lot more positives for you to take from that game, knowing that you're probably going to get, I don't know of anybody who really picked Wisconsin to win that game going in there, but what, 24-10? What was your impressions of that game? Again, I'm not the biggest moral victory person in the world, but it felt like there was a little bit more of a moral victory sense for some. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I could be off on that one. But hey, speaking of the Badgers, though, I know we talked a little bit about it on Friday with their first game against the Gophers there. But Badger men's hockey right now, we got some studs and duds coming up later on in this program, just past 8:00 here. But you kind of look at it for Badger hockey here. Last couple weeks, sweeping Michigan Tech, who was ranked 17th at Michigan Tech, going into Minnesota, the number 1 team in the country, and sweeping them too. Mike Hastings' team, his first season, I would say, off to a pretty darn good start and maybe exceeding some initial expectations with this team. So I'll tell you what, Badger men's hockey, you got to put them on the studs list for what they did this weekend, but also even including going up against Michigan Tech at that point. So heck yeah, why not? Shout out Badger men's hockey. Bucks were in action last night. Not a good game for Damian Lillard after coming off of a 39-point performance in game 1. Damian Lillard just 6 points in the loss last night to the Atlanta Hawks. Not a good performance from the Bucks overall. 127-110. No Chris Middleton in the game. It sounds like, for anybody freaking out, did he have a setback? Is there issues with the knee? Again, it's so eerily similar to Bakhtiari right now, but it sounds like just knee management. Adrian Griffin said before the game that he did practice, everything's good, but since it's a back-to-back, they sat him for this game. He's expected to play tonight against the Miami Heat there. But when you look at, it's tough when your second go-to option, guy who came off, 39 points, and he just struggles from the field overall. 6 total points. Damian Lillard, 6 total points. Not going to get it done there. But that's, yeah, Giannis led the way with 26. Malik Beasley was the next highest scorer for the Bucks with 18 points. So Bucks will be looking to bounce back going up against the Miami Heat tonight. But yeah, 6 points, 4 rebounds, 5 dimes, 5 assists. But Damian Lillard just shot 16.7% from the field. Ugh, yucky. That's you bad. He just barely passed his career low. His career low was 4 points, I think. Was it against the Pacers back in 21? I think I saw that nugget there. So, but yeah, we'll talk a little hoops to preview the game coming up tonight. We got World Series Game 3. It's been an entertaining World Series. If you haven't been watching, you guys are missing out right now. But Game 3 tied up at 1 win apiece between the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. So we got that tonight. A lot of prep stuff. Believe we're still catching up with Justice Cleveland, JC, and EC. About 7:30. I know he was in Green Bay covering the game yesterday, so still kind of waiting for the confirmation there. But if JC is in, he'll be able to kind of do a deep dive for us on a lot of the local stuff going on there. But shout out to the teams advancing to state for state volleyball. That includes Rice Lake, St. Croix Falls, River Falls, boys soccer. Somerset advances to state. Cross country state was this past weekend. I know we had a lot of individual runners and teams also participating. Bloomer girls finishing seconds, boys finishing in fifth there. Equestrian teams this past weekend too. So lots going on here. We'll catch up with Mr. Justice Cleveland to recap all of that, plus a lot of blue gold stuff going on here too. Women's hockey, men's hockey, all in action for the Blue Goals. Men's hockey upset Augsburg. It was a 14-13 matchup, so was technically an upset there. So plenty of Blue Gold action going on here as well. So we'll catch up with Justice on it. Football falling to UW Lacrosse. UW Lacrosse, number 4 in the country, 59-14, excuse me. So, as I mentioned, we also have some studs and duds. If you want to let us know your studs and duds, you can hit us up with a text on the Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. But we might as well get things going here this morning on the leadoff. We'll kind of vent. Sure, people will be voicing their frustrations and such on another Packers loss last night. Or maybe some of you are just like, hey, I had low expectations heading into the season. I didn't expect a whole lot with a quote unquote younger team. Kind of more so, let's focus on building and maybe going into shooting for next year sort of thing. I don't know. There's that we've got both sides of the aisle here. So well, I guess we'll recap the game from last night, yesterday afternoon, and I got a couple thoughts that I kind of want to throw out there too, both offensively and defensively at this point. So we'll take that first break, and then we'll get the leadoff going here this morning. We'll be back in just a few minutes, chatting a little football. Don't forget to check out the Man Cave podcast wherever you get your podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, sportstalk1051.com. Kind of had a fun one on Friday. If you were listening to the program on Friday, you found out Brandon and I were going to a allegedly haunted location for Halloween. Halloween is tomorrow, so we wanted to okay, let's do a little ghost hunting and that sort of stuff. So check it out. We did the recording from the location on Friday, and I will just say when you're listening to it, it might sound a little weird. So when we got there and I was setting up the equipment, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory here. When we got there and we were setting up the equipment, and I went to hit record, and it happened a few times, and this error message kept popping up. And we were told we were there with Chris from who does the haunted tours in Chippewa Falls and such. And he said that almost every time they're there, something happens. But I was getting an error message on our equipment every single time I hit the record button. An error message I had never seen before, but it still showed that it was recording. So I was like, all right, let's do it. But I busted out my phone and put up the voice recorder as like a little backup audio there, okay? Got back to the studio when we were done. Went to upload it. Only half of it recorded. Only half of it recorded. That's it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to retest the equipment and all that. Hooked it up the same exact way. Put it, just everything. No errors. No error messages. Worked perfectly fine. So luckily the phone didn't have any issues. So if it sounds a little maybe quieter, it's not too bad. But if it sounds a little bit different, that's why. So had a little bit of an experience there. Maybe, possibly. I don't know. But we had, I think, 8 total episodes last week of the Man Cave podcast, 8 or 9 episodes. Or 9 episodes overall when you factor in we had an All Aboard the Eau Claire Express podcast and a Blue Golds Rolling with the Golds podcast also up there too. So looking for some locations to maybe do some more remote Man Cave podcasts. We're going to be at Hy-Vee next Friday. We're going to be actually doing a show from Hy-Vee next Friday for Veterans Day because they do their Veterans Day breakfast over there. And then right after that, because they got a new sports shop, Team Swag store over there. So we're going to do the podcast right after the morning show over there too. So looking for some locations coming up here for some remote Man Cave podcasts. Got any suggestions? Got any places, businesses, or anything like that? Hit me up. Let me know. We'll see if we can fit it in. I got a calendar right here where I can easily punch them in here. All right, let's get things going here on the leadoff. Let's try to get through this here together. Packers falling to the Minnesota Vikings 24-10 yesterday. Same story. Script writers, they got to come up with something. I know the Hollywoods, are they still on strike? I don't know. I don't follow that stuff, but good Lord, the NFL script writers got to come up with something different here with Green Bay because I'm reading the same book. I'm reading the same short story every single weekend, it seems like here. But Packers, luckily, putting up 3 before the half, thanks to a penalty by Minnesota because Anders had missed the field goal. Well, offsides, they got another shot. 10-3 heading in the half. It seemed like it could have been a whole lot worse. But then you had, Minnesota going up with the touchdown, then a pick, and then another quick touchdown, and it just seemed like 24-10 out of the range. But then Green Bay started to make it a little bit closer, thinking, hey, okay, 2 possessions within the red zone there at the end when Kirk Cousins went down, Preston Smith forcing a fumble there, the block kick. Green Bay couldn't take advantage of it. Nothing. 2 possessions in the red zone, and you come away with 0 points. That's it. That is it. Oh, man. Where do we want to go with this first? Should we just go into the offense again? Like, what's going on? Like, I feel bad. Now I know the trade deadline's coming up tomorrow. And over the weekend, there was some rumblings about could Preston Smith be a guy that's on the move and such. But I got to be honest with you. I feel bad for Aaron Jones right now because he keeps saying he's 100%. Now, could this be a player that's saying he's 100%? Maybe. and maybe he's still on a snap count or anything like that. But he is your veteran offensive playmaker. And where in the world is he? 7 carries yesterday. 7. Between him and A.J. Dillon, 13 total carries. And I know when it comes to the second half, when you're down 24-10, it kind of takes away your running game because you got to play a little catch up in that. But goodness gracious. And I know Aaron dropped that ball. Aaron Jones dropped that ball in the passing game too, but 4 catches on 5 targets for just 17 yards. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we necessarily doing right now in terms of the running game? Like, there is no identity. We keep talking about identity. Where is the identity? We don't have one yet. We got nothing. There's no identity whatsoever. Nothing. Nada. I think I even saw Brian Balaga talk about it on Twitter. Brian Balaga, Iowa, talking about there's just no identity with this ball club. And I feel bad for a guy like Aaron Jones because Aaron Jones has got to be the guy. You know, you can utilize him in so many ways in the passing game and in the running game, and it's just like, why aren't we? Why aren't we? Again, is he still on a snap count? I don't know, but Greg Googly Mowgli, as Andy Reid says in the new, not bad, resurfaced Snickers commercial out there. But yeah, Balaga. It's unfortunate a team with no true identity currently and not enough veteran leaders to guide this young roster during difficult times / games like this. Balaga's kind of an interesting follow on Twitter now, when because I know he does some radio stuff too, but which I never would have imagined for a guy like Brian Balaga. But nonetheless, I always, for a guy especially recently retired, getting perspective from players like that because they were just in it not that long ago, kind of getting, they've been there, they've been in those situations. So I appreciate, I always find those kind of takes interesting. Mike Wall's another good one. He does a lot of film work. If you're on Twitter or the X or anything like that, he's another really good one to follow out there too. But it's I'll tell you this. Like, one thing I was kind of like going back and forth in my head after the game last night because I'm doing a little scoreboard watching too. I'm like, Jets won again. Jets are 4-3 right now. We know we're not getting a first round pick for the Rodgers thing. It's a second round pick, but you'd like the Jets to lose, so it's a higher second round pick. But right now, the Jets are like, they're getting the job done. They're 4-3, and they're still in this thing. They're still in for a playoff spot. And it's like you look at it and I'm like, okay, Zach Wilson's their quarterback, and you look at El Lazard really isn't doing a whole lot, statistically. But it's like Breece Hall in his second year. It's Garrett Wilson in his second year. Those guys are young. They're in their second years. Why are they able to do it? It's probably because they're just so much better right now. Their talent level, even though they're second year guys, their talent is that much higher than the second year guys of Green Bay right now. Then you look at the defense. It's like, Green Bay's defense got a lot of name guys out there. What's going on here? Jair, by the way, he got worked by a rookie yesterday. Jair got worked by a rookie. The touchdown, Addison just blew on by him. And here was my frustration on a particular play. I know I'm kind of going all over the place here, but bear with me here. But there was that, 3rd and 8? 3rd and 8 situation. And this happened a couple times, but there was one play in particular. I think Jair was how many yards off? Was it to KJ, I think? 3rd and 8. Those are situations. If you are a good defense, you are getting off the field. You're getting off the field on 3rd and 8 situations. Off the line of scrimmage, how many yards? Guy gets a free release. Then it's zone on top of that. So when the receiver, crosses over the middle, Jair puts a hand on him, kind of passes him off because it's zone, easy pitch and catch for first down. That simple. You're making it that easy. And I was thinking about this from a defensive standpoint. I'm like, okay, like what are we doing here? Like I'm trying to, because I do this in my head, and it causes me so much anxiety at times and frustrations because I have the mindset that I always want to try to figure out what are people thinking, or what possibly could is the game plan. Like I do this in every situation, not just sports, but I always try to figure it out. And that's probably what gives me anxiety and high blood pressure at times here, because I try to figure stuff out. And the only thing I could come up with defensively, the philosophy, the mindset is, and Rasul Douglas kind of touched on it a little bit yesterday, and I'll get to his quote after the game. But the only thing that I could come up with defensively was like, okay, the defense, the Joe Barry defense coaching staff fully know that, hey, our offense stinks. They can't do anything. So we're going to play a little bit safer. We're going to try to keep everything in front. A little bend, don't break sort of thing. We're not going to play ultra aggressive. We're going to try to, keep everything in front and not, if we get too aggressive, that opens up for, maybe some mistakes, big plays, touchdowns, shootout situations, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I feel, thinking about this, and I'm trying to comprehend some of the stuff going, and I'm not saying I agree with it by any means, because I don't. But I got to imagine with the offense's inability to do anything, this has an effect on the defense. It puts so much pressure on the defense to be perfect, and you probably have to change your calls to be more safe at times, knowing that you can't get in a shootout offensively. Again, I'm not necessarily agreeing with it. Like, I feel like, okay, how many times have we seen this script written? You might want to be a little bit more aggressive. You might want to, go after and oppose your will. I mean, for crying out loud, you got Rashawn Gary. You've got guys at every level that you should be able to do some things with. But I feel like the defense is playing more passive. Like they're almost scared to be incredibly aggressive to impose their will, because it's almost like they have this mindset, hey, if we are aggressive and we're trying to make some plays, we're going to bring the house on blitzes, and we're going to play some press coverage and all that sort of stuff and really put the pressure. But you screw up, it might lead to a touchdown. It's like, oh crap, we're down 7-0. We can't come back from that. We're down 10-0. We can't come back from that. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of from a defensive mindset. Like, what is this game plan? Like, because you look at the number and you look at the stats, it's not, besides rushing defense, it's like, oh, okay, top 10 defense passing yards and, points in the middle of the pack and that sort of thing. They should be better. We all know they should be better. 100% should they be better. Are they playing a lot of these games where is Green Bay losing a lot of these games because of their defense performance? No, they're not. But they should be better. They're not a unit that, again, like the Jets. You look at those Jets games, and it's like, oh, it's because defense and it's mindset. And I feel like they've got to change that mindset and just be more aggressive. And step up. I mean, these guys talk about like, hey, we know we got to be the group. What Jair said a few weeks ago, we got to almost play perfect. We got to do this. You got to change the mindset. You got to be more aggressive. You can't play it passive. You can't play it safe. More aggressive, does it expose you a little bit more? It absolutely does. Does it matter right now? You're what, 2-5? You got to be more aggressive. But Jair he got worked yesterday by rookie and Addison. Jordan Addison wasn't intimidated by Jair. And when I saw, and then when Jair, I mean, maybe that's why Jair does line up 8 yards off line of scrimmage, because maybe that speed is there. Has he regressed a little bit? I don't know. I know I saw a couple people told me that they thought Jair has regressed or some of these defensive players have regressed. But Rasul Douglas, he had a lot of stuff to say after the game to reporters in that locker room. And apparently, again, there was like a lot of teammates coming up to Rasul in the locker room and I guess just kind of from what I could gather from the reporters that were in the locker room, kind of like, okay, looking to Rasul to be the leader. Like like it kind of gave that impression like, hey, Rasul, what do we do now? What should we do? What happened, Rasul? Like what do we got to do and that sort of stuff. And one of the comments he said when he was asked about the offense and with their first half struggles and such and defensively, try to clean up some of this stuff. We've got to be perfect. No one's perfect, but gosh, I just think offensive coordinators against us can stay in rhythm and they don't have to do anything extraordinary against us because, well, they won't score. Talking about the Packers offense. So we can kind of stick with what we do because even if it's not working out, eventually it might work. He's about kind of the mindset of opposing offensive coordinators because our offense isn't scoring. So we've got to find ways to score on offense. And I agree with Rasul. Like, you look at these offensive teams, and I think he's accurate in a point where they just got to stay in rhythm. They just kind of keep doing their thing, and eventually they're going to score enough points because the Packers offense can't do anything. Just stay in a rhythm. And that's where, again, I will go to where I think that's where defensively you might just have to unleash the horses and be really aggressive and go after it. Because if the offense isn't going to change, if the offense isn't going to do anything, you might as well unleash it. Because you know what, Joe Barry, what else do you got to lose right now? I mean, seriously, what else do you have to lose at this point? Might as well see what we got on defense, too. We talk about offensively. Are we being is Jordan Love and some of these offensive players, maybe specifically Jordan Love, but are they being, held back a little bit? Are we opening up the playbook enough? And I think the same could be said defensively. But this offense, again, I feel bad for a guy like Aaron Jones because he should be a guy that's the focal point of this offense. We talk about veteran leaders, and you look at some of the better offenses in the league. It's veteran guys leading the way, and that it should be Aaron Jones, and it's not. And again, I don't know if he's on a snap count. He says he's 100%. Is that just a player saying that? Maybe, possibly, but I feel bad for that guy because he should be targeted. He should be the main guy, and it's just like we're ignoring the guy. And I know he had a drop ball yesterday, but I mean, come on now. We're not punishing him for that, for crying out loud. Does Love got to get, some, there's some thought, okay, get into a rhythm, shorter passes, gain some confidence. I don't know. It's perplexing. It's incredibly perplexing here. And I'll even go back to when a few years ago, and I know they had Rodgers and Devontae, so it's a little bit different there too. But you look at the coaching staff, and they had a veteran coaching staff with Nathaniel Hackett as offensive coordinator. Heck, even Mike Patton was over there, young head coach with Matt LaFleur. To have those veterans on there, how beneficial was that for a guy like that? Maybe incredibly important at this point, but it's not just one thing. I know we tried, and I'm guilty of this too because I really try to do it. I try to figure it out, and I was trying to do this last night, just wrangling my brain on this thing, and it's literally not one thing. And I think I was talking to our good buddy Brandon about this, and Brandon had a good quote about it. He said, let me see. Yeah, I can't find it right now, but he says it's just like it's frustrating when it comes to it's not just one thing, it's just so many different things. It's so many different things, and you can't really point your finger to it. I mean, and there's probably going to be realistically, there's probably going to be a lot of fans who are more frustrated with certain aspects of this team. I know we did the poll question last week. When you look at the offense, is what area you most frustrated about? It was coaching. It was coaching. Then it was lack of veterans. Then it was the quarterback play, and then it was talent. Everybody's going to have their different ones, but in reality, it's everything right now. And they're just not a good team. They're not a good team. Is it coaching? Yep, probably. Is it lack of veterans? Yep, probably. Is it um you know talent in some areas? Probably. Is it quarterback play? Yeah, probably. Everything. Man. Okay, we gotta take a quick break here. I was just reading it because I have Brian Balaga's Twitter page up here and just kind of looking at some of his tweets during the game here. He said, kind of talking about Joe Barry. That Joe Barry defense keeping us in the game. Say what you will about him and the style of defense, but we have gone 3 and out every drive. Defense has been on the field legit all game, and it's still 10-0. Kudos to them. And then a little bit later on, he said, that's where I understand everyone's frustration about the defense. 3rd and long, and you give up a big gain. I get it. Would like the pass rush to get home on longer developing routes like that. Okay, let's take a quick break here. We'll be back to finish up the first hour in just a few minutes. Hunters, have you thought about where you're going to be taking your venison in when you get that deer this year? I know some of you are probably thinking, dude, man, I got to get one first. You know what? I got confidence in you. You'll get one this year. So now that you got that covered, I'll help you decide where you need to take your venison in this year. And that's Mike's Star Market in Eau Claire. If you want quality, different options to choose from, and how you want your venison processed, why wouldn't you? Then Mike's Star Market is your go-to place. Just visit mikesstarmarket.com to check out their venison processing info and to see all the different options you can choose from, or stop on by and chat with the awesome folks there. Best of luck on your hunting season, and for the best venison processing in town, no one beats Mike's Star Market here in Eau Claire. All right, I got a couple more Rasul Douglas quotes from after the game, and some other players up here too. But this was from Ryan Wood, Packers beat reporter for PackersNews.com. Just a couple of tweets from him. Rasul Douglas still hasn't taken a post-game shower. He's been holding court at his locker. Darnell Savage was first. Malik Heath stopped by. Elton Jenkins, Dontavian Wicks. Packers actively trying to figure this out, and veteran Douglas's locker is the epicenter. Quay Walker, I'll get to a Rasul Douglas quote here too, but Quay Walker apparently told some of his teammates after the game, apologizing to them for not making the interception. But Rasul Douglas wasn't having any of it. Rasul said Quay just talked in front of the whole team, basically saying he thought it was his fault. That blank wasn't his fault. That blank, some words I can't say. If we had 11 of him, we'd probably be 7-0 right now. So I just told him to his face, bro, it's not you, bro. It's all of us. We're all out there on the grass with you. We've just got to do a better job. About the youth excuse, Rasul saying, I don't think it's nothing. We can say people young all we want, but people have to play football. The only person in this locker room that we give leeway to say they're young is Kenneth, because he's never played before. Remember, Kenneth was part of the program where the NFL bring international player, and you kind of get 2 years to work with them, and then Kenneth is one of those. But Rasul went on to say, because he's never played before, like he's never played. So if he goes out there and he does some stuff, we're like, oh, we understand. But everybody else, we've played football before at a high level somewhere. So we're not doing that young blank. Very frustrated. Rasul Douglas. Zach Tom on the slow starts, maybe kind of calling out his offense a little bit here, saying we have the talent. We have the pieces we need. We've shown every game this year that we can move the ball. It's just about doing it consistently. And we're not doing that. We're putting our defense in tough positions. It's just about coming out ready to play. And I don't know if we're always ready to play. Obviously, it's showing up. We're not ready to play. Zach Tom saying we're not ready to play. Is that on coaching? Is that on players? Probably a little bit of both. But you got a second-year offensive lineman kind of going out there already saying, we ain't ready to play. You better, how do you not, that's the thing that always bugged me. And I've never played at a high level pro or anything like that, but it's like, how do you not get ready to play? How are you not ready to play? Like, if it's a excitement, momentum thing, like I got jacked up to play every single game. I don't care if it was high school, college, slow pitch, beer league, softball. I was excited to play. And I was ready to play. Like, how do you not get, like, that always just boggles my mind. How do you not get ready? And maybe he's talking about game plans, and, game plans aren't, up to, I don't know. But the whole motivated thing, like, how do you just not get ready to play? That always bothered me. That always boggled my mind. But this team, I don't know if Rasul Douglas is that leader, but they need somebodies to kind of get this thing going here. And they're 2 wins now, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2 and 5. at this point. I think we can probably kiss playoffs by if you had any playoffs, um, any playoff hopes or that. Probably kiss that one goodbye at this point. I know I'm being a pretty Debbie Downer here at this point, but I mean, come on now, let's face facts. What have you seen from these few weeks that gives you any confidence that they can go on a little bit of a run here? And again, it goes back to the whole what kind of expectations did you have? And I'm one of them. I'll admit it. I drank the Kool-Aid about a week into, right? A week and a half before the season started. I started to sip it, I started to drink. I'm like, okay, maybe this team's could be a little bit better. Then, the game against Chicago, it's like, okay, I drank more of the Kool-Aid. All right. Yep. They're going in. Kool-Aid was probably spiked. And that's my fault. And that's my bad. I should have lowered those expectations. And maybe I got a little excited with the season coming up here. Seeing some of the stuff, seeing some of the positive stuff. Bears game, that spike Kool-Aid got to my head. And I should have lowered those expectations. And maybe if I would have lowered those expectations, I'd have came into this season and would have been like, yeah, what do you expect? Team that doesn't have a whole lot of veteran leadership on the offensive side. But the thing is, they've got like that on defense. And again, the one offensive veteran playmaker leader that they have is Aaron Jones. In the last couple weeks, you're just not. It's like you're not giving him the dang ball. But, and I do agree that I think the defense is being put in some tough, really tough positions here because of the offensive play, like Rasul was saying. I completely agree with that. But I also feel like the defense at some point just has to like say, screw it and just play uber aggressive. And you might risk it. You might risk some big plays. I know some defensive coordinators have the mindset of limiting big plays. You might open yourself up to some bigger plays there, but right now, what do you got to lose? What do you got to lose at this point in time? So, all right, we'll check out some of the texts coming up in the Shoe Doctors bullpen line, texting line here after the top of the hour here. But you can hit us up with some text, 715-830-1912. We'll get back to some green and gold chat. We've got some college football chats, Badgers falling to Ohio State. Some of the writers, some of the people out there following the Badgers kind of taking maybe a little bit more of an optimistic approach after that loss. Saw a lot of people kind of talk about, hey, there were some positives to come out of this, maybe a little bit of a moral victory. I don't know of too many Badger people. In fact, I don't know of anybody who picked the Badgers to win that game, but it seemed like there were some Badger fans that was a little bit like, okay, a little bit more of like a moral victory. Like, okay, we play a little bit better. It was close. We had a shot throughout the whole time, but ultimately fell short. Injuries, Braylon Allen and such. What were your thoughts on the outcome of that game? Shout out to the Badger hockey there. I already told you that they're my early studs and such. So we'll hit that up. Bucks are back in action tonight after dropping their game to the Atlanta Hawks last night. Damian Lillard looking to bounce back, probably in a big way. All the talk in the offseason that he was going to go to the Heat, that he wanted to go to the Heat. They weren't able to get it done. He's going up against the Heat, and he only poured up 6 points last night. I would imagine Damian is looking to really bounce back and have himself a game tonight. Chris Middleton is expected to play tonight. Again, that knee thing kind of got me worried a little bit. World Series is in action. Game 3 tonight too. So still plenty to get to here. We've got one in, 2 more hours to go. We'll be back in just a few minutes after these news updates. All right, here we go. Second hour already on this Monday morning of October 30th. Appreciate you tuning in wherever, however, you may be tuning in from. We're going to get to some college football chat here. Got Bucks back in action tonight, going up against the Miami Heat. Third game of the season. 2 in, 80 more to go. We're going to be under 80 after tonight. Don't know what that means. Just saying. Okay, cross that barrier. We'll get obviously plenty more of Packers chats, recapping that loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, trade deadline is tomorrow. Now, when it comes to NFL trades, once in a while, last few years, we've seen some trades and such, but should the Packers be sellers? I mean, yeah, I know that might be a question for a lot of people. It might be like a instant reaction, like, "Yep, sell off everybody," sell, that sort of stuff. But I don't know if Green Bay will necessarily be sellers. I know, like we mentioned earlier, that Preston Smith's name was floated out there by Jason La Canfora from the Washington Post and such. I don't know if Green Bay will be sellers. I know, what was it, Goody's first year? They made some trades where, I think, was that when Ty Montgomery was traded, and that you can kind of look at like what had happened on that kick return to the Rams, and then Clinton Dix was traded and such. Remains to be seen at this point, but I don't know if they'll be sellers. I honestly don't know, because the NFL trade deadline is such a hard thing to figure out. It's such a hard, whether teams are actually going to be sellers. It's not like baseball where it's like, okay, yeah, you can kind of tell that team's going to be a seller, that team's going to be a buyer, or what have you. So, speaking of baseball, by the way, not a whole lot of updates surrounding Craig Counsell, other than the fact that the Cleveland Guardians have been granted permission to interview Craig Counsell for their managerial position. Now, I don't know if that's if Counsell is really interested in the Cleveland opening here. But again, I feel like Cleveland might be even a worst case scenario for Mark Ananasio. If Craig Counsell goes to Cleveland, what does that say? What his feelings towards Milwaukee? You know what I mean? Like, what would his feelings, or what would that kind of send? Because Cleveland's not the biggest spender either. They did make a World Series. They lost to the Cubs, a few years ago and such. But I don't know. I feel like that would even be a worst case scenario for Mark Anastas in terms of a PR standpoint. You know what I mean? So, okay, let's do some sports nuggets of the day, brought to you by Ansay Associates. 1919, the Professional Baseball Association ruled that spitballs and shine balls were illegal. We've got the New York Jets. Hey, congratulations. In 1988, the Jets beat the Steelers for the very first time. 1988. 1992, Magic Johnson played his last game in the NBA before retiring for the second and last time. We've got Violet Palmer, 1997, became the first woman to officiate an NBA game. The game was between the Mavericks and the Vancouver Grizzlies. I remember this first pitch. 2001, New York City, President George W. Bush threw out the first pitch at Game 3 of the World Series between the Yankees and the Diamondbacks. Strike down the pipe off the mound too. There's a really good, and it resurfaced because President Bush just threw out first pitch in Game 1 of this World Series with the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. But there's a really good video that surfaced. I saw it a few months and it just popped up again because of that. But like Derek Jeter was talking about it, and Derek Jeter told the president at that time, he's like, "You better throw it off the mound because this is New York. You might get booed if you don't." Threw it off the mound and boom, down the middle, man. 2001, same day, same year, Michael Jordan returned to the NBA with the Washington Wizards after a 3.5-year retirement. The Wizards lost 93-91 to the New York Knicks. Those are some of your sports nuggets of the day, brought to you by Ansay Associates. Now, I know people kind of look at the Jordan and the Wizards era and be like, "Yep, forget about that." Just kind of forget about that. And I get it too. I mean, I remember watching that. That all his final All-Star game was awesome. Kobe, the competitor. Now I appreciate it. At that time, I did not like what Kobe did. I was frustrated, rewind it. Jordan hits the fadeaway, turnaround fadeaway. Few seconds left. All-Star game. Everybody's pumped up. Kobe draws the foul. Jermaine O'Neal, I think, was the guy that fouled. We should be more mad at Jermaine O'Neal. Kobe goes to the line with three. I think it was 3 free throws. Jordan's trying to get in his ear to, get him to miss one. Guy nails them all. All the pressure in the world. Everybody wants Kobe to miss one. Nails them. Storybook ending of an All-Star game goes away. I know I was just always upset at that ending. But now, kind of understanding Kobe and the Mamba mentality, that I kind of actually appreciate it more too. But anyways, I know everybody kind of looks at that Jordan thing and be like, oh, that was a fail. Think about it. The guy was retired for 3.5 years. 3.5 years away from playing. He comes back, and what does he do? He averages 23 points per game, and then 20 points per game. That's still darn impressive. And I know he was 38, 39, not in his 40s, but to be away from the game for 3.5 years, to come back and still put up averaging over 20 points per game, dude, that's impressive. Come on. That's incredibly impressive. But Jordan is definitely one of those guys, when you imagine him in a Wizards jersey, even though we saw it for a couple of years, still looks incredibly weird. Like top 5, right? Top 5. Favre in a Vikings one I'd throw up there, even though he played a couple years in there too. Got to an NFC championship. I mean, there's some good ones out there. Like, even, sure, people put Brady in it, but Brady won a Super Bowl. I don't know, maybe it's more of a recency thing. But what do you think are the top 5? Top 5 most awkward-looking jerseys. New players in jerseys. Think about that, because we've got breaking news. Breaking news from the Packers world. Nobody got fired, but Rashawn Gary has signed a new contract with the Green Bay Packers. This is according to Rashawn Gary himself. Rashawn Gary himself signing it. He posted, Rashawn Gary Sports announces a 4-year, $107 million contract extension for Rashawn Gary. So 4 years, $107 million. He says $34.6 million. He's actually got a Twitter video out there. Thanks to everyone in the Green Bay Packers organization, my family, business team, NFL friends, fans, and supporters for taking this ride with me. He's got a picture of him. It looks like he's signing that contract over there. But I don't know if I've seen a player go out there and even report his own signing, or his own guaranteed. Was it the guarantee? The signing bonus out there? Yeah, 4-year extension. He's got it down in the last dollar. $107 million, 532,706, 34.6 million in signing bonus. So Rashawn Gary, we kind of figured it was going to happen at some point this year. And lo and behold, he gets it done the day before the trade deadline. So there you go. Rashawn Gary locked up for the Packers with a contract extension. I'm sure now all the insiders are going to be posting that all around the Twitter sphere and social medias out there. But maybe there's one bit of good news for Packers fans this morning, to see the news that Rashawn Gary has signed an extension for the Packers. And that's kind of where I think Preston Smith's name was being potentially floated out there as a potential trade candidate, because Rashawn Gary was going to get an extension. They got Lucas Van Ness. I think they really like Kingsley Kiki Enagbare. I think they like him a lot, cap-wise, that sort of stuff. But there you got it. Rashawn Gary. I'm kind of waiting. I'll have to look during the break if nothing pops up here if I had a producer, I could tell them to look this up. Surveyor's been very quiet. I haven't heard from Surveyor in a while. Otherwise, I'd tell him to look this up for me because he usually does stuff like that. But where does this put Rashawn Gary in terms of highest paid edge rushers in the league right now? I'm kind of curious to see where that puts him at this point in time. Hmm. All right. Tell you what, I might do a little bit of digging on that and then kind of see what I can find out here. We'll take a quick break and I'll see if I can find out some more info and see where that kind of puts him in terms of the highest paid uh, edge rushers out there and such. And then we'll get to some of your texts. I know I said I'd get to just past the top of the hour here, but I'll get to those here in just a second. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back in just a few minutes. It's getting close to that time of year where you're going to be having a bunch of people in your home, whether you like it or not. So you want to make sure your home is up to snuff with all those family and friends get-togethers and gatherings. And the first area you should be looking at to upgrade is the floors in your home. Just close your eyes for a few seconds and imagine that one room or two in your home that will look amazing with a brand new carpet or some luxury vinyl planks or tile. And I see that smile creeping on your face when you imagine Aunt Jolene being really jealous of that new floor of yours. All right, so here's what you do. Here's the game plan. Head on over to Wisconsin's premier flooring store, Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. Their incredible team will help you find that perfect floor that will make Aunt Jolene incredibly jealous, look awesome in your home, and fits within your budget because they will even match or beat the competition. The team at Carpet City Flooring Center is like one big family over there. And since we're getting ready to be spending a lot of time with the family in the next couple of months, why wouldn't you want to work with them? Give them a visit today at 3019 East Hamilton Avenue in Eau Claire. All right, we will hear from Justice Cleveland here in just a little while here. So we'll catch up on some of the prep stuff and all that busy stuff going on here too. But we'll hear from him here in a little bit. But did some digging here with Rashawn Gary's new contract, his extension. Okay, so now Ian Rappaport just tweeted out here. The Packers and star pass rusher Rashawn Gary have agreed to terms on a 4-year, $96 million extension in new money, $107 million overall, with a signing bonus of $34.6 million. The former first rounder has recovered nicely from an ACL tear and is one of the league's most disruptive defenders. So I kind of, without knowing what the full on guarantee, now we know signing bonus is guaranteed, but there might be some more guaranteed money with this. But in terms of like average per year, if we factor in 107 million overall, 4 years. So if we do that, because I'm not totally sure what the total guaranteed is yet for Rashawn. But if we do the average, he looks like he's fourth in terms of average per year. And this is according to overthecap.com. Nick Bosa is number 1. TJ Watt is number 2. Joey Bosa is number 3. And then Rashawn Gary would slot in just ahead of Myles Garrett and right below Joey Bosa in terms of average per year. Now, total value is different. You know, you've got Nick Bosa, TJ Watt, Joey Bosa, Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. Those guys, it looks like even Bradley Chubb and Von Miller would be higher than Rashawn Gary right now. But again, more details to come in terms of like fully guaranteed, total guaranteed. And you look at Nick Bosa's contract and I mean, he's got a total value of 170 million. He's got an average of 34 per, total guaranteed of 122.5. Yeah, that dude is getting paid. And well, I mean, he is one of the best, if not the best, edge rushers in the entire league over there. So, but that's just kind of what, again, without looking at or without knowing the total guaranteed and such. Again, we know signing bonuses is fully guaranteed, but there's other factors into this too. So if we look at average per year, he slots in at fourth highest in terms of edge rushers out there. So I don't know if too many, I would hope we don't have too many Packers fans out there who are disappointed in this news of Rashawn Gary's extension. I would hope not. Maybe there are. I don't know. But I would hope not too many people are that upset about Rashawn Gary and such. So what was his? I was hoping to see the grades from Pro Football Focus, but I don't think they're quite out yet from the game yesterday. But overall, Rashawn Gary's his Pro Football Focus grade is 88.1, which is just close to the elite status that Pro Football Focus goes out there and grades. So we'll get back to some more green and gold chat with Justice. I know he was at the game and covering the game yesterday, so we'll get back to that here in just a little bit. Bucks are back in action tonight taking on the Miami Heat, and they're going to be looking to bounce back after last night's performance against the Atlanta Hawks, where that was just not a good game. It was a sloppy game by the Bucks, 127 to 110. The Atlanta Hawks picking up their first win on the season. Damian Lillard, sloppy game for him, not a good game for him. Just 6 points, 6 points after having that fantastic opening game for his Bucks debut. 39 points, follows it up 6 points, shooting 16.7% from the field overall. Did have 4 rebounds and 5 assists as part of it. But no Chris Middleton for this game after playing, 16 minutes in the first game? Did not play in last night's game. Jay Crowder got the start for the Bucks. Adrian Griffin, head coach for the Bucks, saying it's part of the plan that Chris Middleton did practice. And since it's a back-to-back game, Middleton sat out the first of a back-to-back. He is expected to play in tonight's game against the Miami Heat. Last night, Giannis in 29 minutes, 26 points, 11 rebounds. Malik Beasley, though, was the second leading scorer for the Bucks. He put up 18 points. Bobby Portis with 12 off the bench. So Bucks will try to bounce back with I would imagine, I think Damian Lillard, coming off that really bad performance last night. Now you got Miami, the team that I think everybody in the world expected Damian Lillard to be traded to. It sounded like Damian Lillard wanted to go to the Heat, pair up with Jimmy Butler and such. There might be a little bit of motivation there. And plus, just coming off of a bad night, I would expect Damian Lillard to bounce back and have himself a nice night tonight, have himself a good game going up against the Heat. And hopefully the Bucks pick up another win here too. Get their second win. You're looking at their upcoming schedule. They've got the Heat tonight. Then they've got the Raptors. They finally hit the road to visit Toronto on Wednesday. But then they're back home against the Knicks on Friday. Then they kind of a lot of home games to begin the season for the Bucks right now. So still, I mean, we're just 2 games in. I don't think we can really kind of how do I want to phrase this? Kind of really really know where this team's at and all that sort of stuff. Just a couple games into it at this point, but we'll see how it goes. I still think you're going to see, at least maybe in the beginning parts, first couple weeks of the season here, some up and down performances for the Bucks when everybody kind of figures it out, and just kind of new offensive system, new defensive system with Adrian Griffin in, new players and such. Might be kind of some up and down moments, and maybe that was the case last night for the Bucks out there. But I would expect a nice bounce back from Damian tonight. So before we get to Justice, a couple of texts coming up here. We got a lot of texts coming in here. Living a Dream, Jeff, a little bit earlier. Good morning, Dan. Repeating the same thing over and over, expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And we've heard that one many times. I see no discipline or leadership on his team, which is weird because from the last 3 years, there are 8 players that have been Pro Bowl or All-Pro type players. We all know Barry was in over his head, and I'm starting to believe LaFleur is too. Love the Packers, but I'm betting against them from the rest of the season. I have to use my head and not my heart on this season. G-Man, Pack will win the next game, and the Bucks will win the next game, and the Badgers will win the next game. Way to go, Bucky in hockey, and way to go, Bucky in volleyball. And the Pack will win the rest of their games this year. Yes, I would get that jersey of Marvin Harrison Jr. Bucky will win the NCAA title in hockey this year on Wisconsin, and the Bucks will win tonight. G-Man's all the ever optimistic G-Man there. We've got Mark chiming in. Love the news about Rashawn Gary and the contract extension. Fully expected it to happen, but now that it's done, he's locked up. He is definitely their best defensive player. Tim, good to hear that they locked up Rashawn Gary. Not looking forward to the rest of the season, however. I'm expecting a lot more duds than stuff this year from the Packers, but at least we got a little bit of good news that Rashawn Gary is locked up. We got another one from what do we got? We got a lot of them over here. Chris with the text here too saying my studs and duds list for this morning. Studs easily Badger men's hockey, like you had mentioned, taking down the Gophers. Duds, it's easy to pick the Packers for my studs and duds. We got Greg studs and duds. He is going with Badger men's hockey as well. Okay, we got another one for Badger men's hockey for your studs. Duds is the pack. I figured this is probably going to be a not that much of a difference between a whole lot of studs and duds for people. Between Badger hockey might be the only positive thing from this weekend, and the duds of the Packer game. This is from Luke. Dud is Damian Lillard with his performance last night. Just 6 points after coming off of a 39-point performance. That was ugly last night. All right, so he's just going with the dud and no studs over there. We've got Jeremy with a quick text in here as well. Good to see the news on Rashawn Gary with his contract extension. Everybody thought he was a bust as soon as he was selected on draft night, and all he has done is changed that narrative and is easily a top 10, maybe even just outside top 5 edge rusher in the entire NFL. Don't believe me? Look at the stats, look at his pressure win rate and his Pro Football Focus grades. Well, we just went up to the Pro Football Focus grade, and yeah, I mean, you look at the pressure rates, and he is one of the top 5 in the league in terms of. I think he is. I don't know if he still is, but he was the first few weeks of the season top 5 in pressure rates of getting after the quarterback over there too. So yeah, you'd be right over there too. So studs, Badger men's hockey and Badger volleyball, duds, Packers and Bucks. So all right, let's take a break and we'll get JC in here. We'll get his thoughts on everything. Then we'll finish up the second hour here after these quick words. Back from Green Bay, hot off the presses.
Just got off the train.
Just got off the train, man. JC and EC, Justice Cleveland, sports director extraordinaire, joining us in studio again this morning. Is it still kind of chilly out there? You got the dad vest on.
No, it's chilly.
Yeah,
it definitely feels like we're in the midst of fall now
Mhm.
after the nice being able to golf for
yeah.
an extended time in October. I think it's over now.
See, I'm glad to see you're a vest guy. I'm a vest guy too. Kirk Cousins, I saw this video. Apparently, he's not a vest guy. He doesn't understand the point of vests.
I wasn't up until a few years ago now.
So it's got to be a dad thing, right?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Well, your arms aren't the thing that you need the core.
You need the
core needs
exactly.
to be warm.
Exactly. Come on now, Kurt. He said his wife's trying to get him to be a vest guy.
All the muscle mass of my arms keeps them warm anyway, so we're okay.
Those sleeves can't contain me.
Right,
That's why well, it's kind of rinse and repeat from last week here, Justice. And you were at the game. You were covering it. And in the locker room, I was reading some of the beat writers who were in the locker room. Apparently, Rasul Douglas was kind of holding court and talking quite a bit and maybe voicing some frustrations out there too.
We saw it a little bit last week in Denver that he voiced his frustrations, and I think he kind of did again. I think the frustration being that as a defense, they can't do enough to win games because they need that offense to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the defense actually performed pretty well yesterday. I mean, you can't be on the field that much.
Mm-hmm.
And they put them in position to have a chance for a comeback. And I think that's the more disappointing thing is that they weren't able to punch the ball in at least one time there in the fourth quarter.
Right.
After getting a chance to
2 possessions on the 15-yard line in the red zone, and you got 0 points.
Right. I think that's where the frustration goes from. I don't think it's like an animosity. I think it's just as a defense, you can do only so much.
Mm-hmm.
You're hard. Obviously, you can lose games as a defense. You can win games as a defense, but you got to score points.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not scoring points and both sides are making stupid penalties, that's where I think the big frustration comes from.
You bring up the penalties and and like just the negative plays, that sort of stuff. And I know some of the offensive players were kind of talking about that too. And I don't have the numbers in front of me and I can look it up, but it really seems like Green Bay's got to be up there in terms of negative plays.
Yeah, I think they're the most penalized team in the league.
Okay,
if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what Rasul said, or one of the players said. So you can't be doing that,
especially like in the offensive line. I mean, whenever they do have a positive run, it seems like it's being called back,
right,
on a lot of like a holding penalty or something like that. Then all of a sudden you're down to 2nd and 13 or something.
That to me that was probably the most frustrating thing about the first half. I think that was a league high 8 penalties in the first half, which not good at all. And they were whatever you want to say about Jordan Love, an offense is going to have a tough time finding success when it's 2nd and 15. Mm-hmm. When you have, and LaFleur said this in his postgame, when you're in those obvious passing downs, it's going to be a lot harder to win games because the element of surprise is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys can just sit back there, wait for you to pass, and guys are dropping the ball.
Yeah,
the formula was horrible in the first half for them. Just not being able to get the first downs on the short, like start the game. We have AJ Dillon running to get stopped on a short one. So that you're already punting there. Then the penalties start to stack up. And then guys are dropping the ball. I think there was one drive. I feel like there was like 2 drops, and then you're 3 and out.
Yeah.
So it was not the execution was bad in the first half.
Is that, in your opinion, coaching, or is it just because they're inexperienced at this point?
Yeah,
the $1 million question.
How much of it that goes down to coaching, and how much does that go to inexperience? It's going to be both, a little bit of both. I think LaFleur does not want to hear the inexperienced stuff anymore, especially when we're this far into the season.
Neither does Rasul, apparently.
No, exactly. Yeah, he said there's only one guy that.
Yeah, it was their
Ingebar, not Ingebar.
Kenny, or is it Ken? Oh, no, the international player.
Yeah, who's never actually. He's the only guy who will give excuses because he's never really played football before.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The rest of them have been playing football their whole life. So, again, these are growing pains, and this was a big game where you saw a lot of the stuff all kind of come to the surface in one contest. Mm-hmm. And that being said, even losing 24-10, there were opportunities and windows for that team to get back in the game that they just couldn't crawl through and get closer than they needed to be. But the defense, I still think, to be on the field double the time as the other team's defense and still have a chance to do something. I think, yeah, you can see where the frustration grows when you're doing it to contain a team. And
defensively, I was talking to somebody about this, and I want to get your thoughts. Like, I was, because I'm like, after that game, I'm like, okay, because I have this mindset, I got to figure stuff out. Like, what's the mindset? And it's what gives me anxiety, and I can't sleep at night. I try to get in the mind of everybody,
right,
that sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to think of this defensively. You got a bunch of name players on there: Jair, Rashawn, Kenny, Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker. It's like, why aren't they maybe a top 5, top 10 unit and that sort of stuff? And my mindset, and the only thing I could think of, Justice, was, okay, are they, because you're right, they're on the field a lot.
right.
And it puts a lot of pressure on them to be perfect almost every series. But do you feel like at times that maybe they're just a little too passive in a way that, like, hey, we can't necessarily be that aggressive, because if we are, that exposes us to big plays, and we know we can't get into shootouts. If we get down double
Right.
digits, we can't. So I have to imagine the way the offense is playing, does that affect the play calls on the defensive side of things?
I would think it has to a little bit. I mean, you kind of pointed that out. Like, you don't want to give up that big play because you can't keep up right now with that offense. So you're giving up those little plays, and you see Kirk Cousins is great at finding that guy in the underneath, that safety valve, and we saw that a lot over the middle. They would get those 8-9 yard little chunk plays that would set them up to get first downs. Wasn't too many big plays in that game, but it's just a matter of if you have an experienced quarterback like a Kirk Cousins who's been in the league, and we talk about the game slowing down. And you can tell Kirk Cousins at times that game's so much slower probably than it is for Jordan Love right now. That he'll look for his first big guy, but he knows exactly where that guy on the safety valve is going to be for him. So I think the Packers were giving him up the bend don't break. I mean, we've heard that forever.
Right.
But it almost what it is, because they can't let a deluge come out, or there's no chance with the way the offense is performing. So I think you're right. I think there's a little bit of, hey, we can't take these big chances, because if we blitz or something and we get gashed for a touchdown, how are they going to come back?
I know you have been one that's focused on the last few weeks, like the fundamentals of the quarterbacks, like throwing off the back feet and all that. And I don't know if you had a chance to see, Dan Orlovsky had a little video about Jordan Love. He was watching film and kind of pointing it out. And it was that throw that was nearly picked. I think it was Wicks on the sideline. It looked like it was, and then he just came out of nowhere. And Orlovsky was talking about, and he's like, really was kind of critical of Jordan Love's footwork there, because he's like, he's too hoppy. At a certain point, that's when you should be winding up. He said, like a boxer, when you're winding up and hitting it. And there was that window there, but he wasn't in a throwing position. He's just like kind of jumping up and down back there. I mean, is it just, again, young quarterback? And I know a lot of fans now are just getting tired of it, because he's like, well, he's been in the league for 4 years. And I yes, you're factually right. He has been in the league for 4 years, but in terms of games, what, 8, 9, on the docket right now. Fundamentals part of that. It sure looks like he's not fully there yet. A lot of aspects of that.
Because he can make these passes because he makes them in practice, but in the games, there's just a few of them. I'm just watching them that he's sailing or just a little off the mark. I don't think it's anything that's overly fixed. Maybe it takes watching film a little bit more and figuring out what he's doing wrong. Because I honestly think, like, you come from follow a guy like Aaron Rodgers, whose fundamentals, he did what basically he wanted to do, because with his arm, no matter where he was throwing from, he could be accurate. Though he still had troubles, and we saw that in years where his fundamentals. Jordan isn't at that spot. He needs to be using those fundamentals to his advantage and just making those throws without, like you said, being on the hop or anything like that, because he's not at the point where he can just make those throws throwing from all these different angles. So I think we'll see it, but I mean, this is going to be it's been a rough stretch. You get basically a half a season left here, a little more than a half a season left. to see what they can do. I think this is you hope you have a team that was kind of like Detroit that started off slow,
Right.
then built momentum to the end of the season, and then the next year you can build off that, and these guys get that winning mindset
Hmm.
instead of feeling like they can't do anything right on the field. So,
Right.
and I give it credit. The guys aren't. There's not finger pointing. Really, there isn't. And I think the offensive guys are taking it on themselves, knowing that they've got to do better.
Hmm.
Talking to Christian Watson in the locker room, he's like, playmakers got to make plays, and we're just not doing it right now.
Hmm.
And they got to help Jordan Love out. You can't have the drops. That you make you get that first down right away. You complete some of those passes that were dropped. The game could be completely different if you get some kind of momentum going early. But when you go 3 and out right away,
Hmm.
that just it's like, "Oh, here we go again."
Right.
So, there's a lot obviously a lot of things that need to be corrected, but it's been a tough stretch. You can tell it's a tough stretch for this team.
And it's funny, I was just mentioning that Mike Wall, who's I love following him on Twitter because he does a lot of video breakdowns,
Yeah.
former offense, and he actually just posted that same video and said the same exact thing. These plays are there. Jordan just has to get his feet in the ground and anticipate this throw.
Right. Like, there was
That stuff.
the ones to the sidelines that ended up not being catches, they could have been easier throws. He's
Mhm.
making some of these throws he's making a
Like
little more
short
difficult.
hopping a little bit there
Yeah.
too. So yeah, it's is it fundamentals at that point? Is it feel? And like I know we talked about too, and you just kind of mentioned it. Is it just it's not slowing down for him? He's a
Yeah.
little antsy out there.
So you got those kind of things with the fundamentals. You have receivers not catching the ball. And then, like, even in his interception there, the ball was there. It could have been caught. Now, some people can say it was probably underthrown, excuse me, a little bit, but the receiver's hands were right there. He had his
Hmm.
hands on the ball. It's just at some point you hope the game slows down.
Hmm.
And again, that's what as much maligned as I probably have been on Kirk Cousins for most of his career, I hate to see what happened to him yesterday. And it's really like watching a guy for so long, almost like a boxer or something like that, go out there and take so many punches but still be able to deliver. That was Kirk Cousins. The
Yeah.
guy has a great internal clock to know when to get rid of the ball. And the throws he made in traffic, I almost just watching the games that I've watched the Vikings this year, utmost respect for the guy because he's doing it with a line that's doing nothing, a running game that's really not doing
They
much.
finally got their first rushing touchdown
Right.
yesterday.
And it was all on his shoulders. Loses the best receiver arguably in the league,
Hmm.
and they were still able to move the ball because he can find the guy that he needs to at the last second. So hats off to Kirk Cousins, even though what ended up, we're not going to see him if it's an Achilles, he's done
Yeah.
for the year. But man, like after all I still don't know if that contract was justified that he ended up getting, but he's made a believer of me on the field and just shows you how much experience can make a difference in a game.
Well, I mean, I know there's Packers fans too that will kind of criticize him. I mean, if Kirk Cousins is the quarterback of Green Bay this year, do they have a winning record?
I don't know. There's probably a couple teams now are looking at Kirk Cousins saying, "Man, we probably could have gotten him."
Hmm. I'm just, if you put him in place of Jordan, I think that's worth a couple more wins at this point.
I think I mean,
Hmm.
you could go back to if it was Rodgers, obviously, would they
Right.
have a couple more wins too? I
Mhm.
think if you have a more experienced guy, but then you're going short term versus
Right.
long term.
Hmm.
Is it worth taking the season to get Jordan Love where you need him to be? If you believe that he can be at that high caliber, there's going to be growing pains.
Right.
And I think we're seeing that. I think you see with not everybody's, you can have like a Brock Purdy.
Right.
Started off the season great, but we've seen the struggles there.
Yeah.
Younger quarterbacks are going to have it, even if there is not everybody is going to be. I don't even say like Patrick Mahomes, who sat a year but
Right.
came out then. So it's such a tough place to a position to evaluate. So I think the book hasn't been written on Jordan Love yet.
I don't think so either. And we had our good buddy Aaron last week bring up this point, and I kind of wonder if there's something to it too, where you look at the offseason decisions that were made. Where on offense they completely let go of every veteran,
Right. Yep.
and if it was like because let's face it, Goody and the front office didn't do any favors to help out, in terms of veteran leadership, veteran
Yeah.
playmakers. Was it like, hey, we know we kind of put you, Matty, we know we put you in a bad spot. We got your back for this year. They're not going to be fired or anything
Right.
like that.
Yep.
We then give you a lot to work with. We're going really young here. It's all about the growth, this year. And, yes, Aaron Jones is still there, and he's been banged up here a little bit. He says he's 100%, but I think that's the frustrating part. If he's 100%, we're not seeing a whole lot of him.
Right. They're
out
not
on the
using
field.
him to 100% of what we're used to seeing him. So
Right.
I think there's a point to it. I think they had to have known coming in this was going to be a rough season.
Mm-hmm.
That it could be a rough season. That there's always potential that somehow everything clicks and you have a great season. But I think they had to come in knowing that this was going to be a learning season. And I think you almost hear it from LaFleur post game that he's starting with something raw and
Mhm.
trying to mold them. And when it doesn't work, obviously you get frustrated. But I don't. It sounds like he to me sounds like somebody who's trying to build for the future. And I don't. I think Matt LaFleur's job is safe.
Yeah.
I do. I really do. I don't think this team's to the point where it's out of control. There's not fist fights going on in the locker room.
Right.
I think they knew this was going to be young, and obviously in the cap position that they're in, it didn't help anything.
Mhm.
You've got the Aaron Rodgers situation with the cap situation. So they're this year they're trying to save up for seeing what they can do next year. I mean, there's still going to be money that they're
Mhm.
going to have to deal with
Right.
for that as well. But I think that's really what it is. Is this is kind of a season where you got to take your lumps and hope that next year you can kind of fill in some of those gaps and really build off what you have. So, I think LaFleur's job's safe. You wish they would have. I think maybe they anticipated not losing some of those veterans like an Alan Lazard.
Mhm.
One that maybe the pull of Aaron Rodgers was just too much that you lose a guy like that. Or they let Mercedes go. I think Mercedes would have been a good guy to just keep there almost as like a player coach.
Right.
Because it's a guy who has so much experience. You don't have that on that team right now.
Yeah. And I think also too for everybody who thought it was time to move on for Bakhtiari, which we'll see how his knee goes. Right now, they need a left tackle too.
Yeah. There's some swings and misses on that line that were just ugly yesterday in the game. That
Mhm.
you're just like, what are you doing?
Right.
And that's the first. I don't think we've really had a Packers line this beat up and not without a solid. I mean, I think Elton Jenkins is still a solid, but he's
Mhm.
banged up.
Yeah.
He's getting treatment still on that knee.
Yeah.
After the game. So this isn't the guy who's 100%. So there's a lot of needs there that they need to kind of shore up in the offseason. I wouldn't say this like I don't think it wouldn't have hurt to bring in a veteran quarterback as a backup, just
Mhm.
to have that veteran presence on the sidelines that Jordan Love can go to
Right.
after something goes wrong or something like that. Not to say anything against Sean Clifford, it's just that Sean Clifford can't come over and say, "Hey, I've been in this position."
Mhm.
So that would have been another thing that they could have went
Right.
for. But
Yeah.
hindsight again is easily 2020.
Exactly. All right. That's the shot clock music there. We're going to take a quick break. We'll have more with Justice, including another busy last few days on the prep scene there, too. Cross country had state. We got volleyball teams going to state, of course, high school football. We'll break it all down with JC Nisi coming up in just a little bit. All right, third and final hour on this Monday morning. Big thanks for tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from. I know we got quite a few texts to get to here. We'll get to those coming up in just a little bit. Not ignoring anybody. We just got a lot coming in. Feel like I need to change Grind My Gears Tuesday to Grind My Gears Monday at this point. So
We might want to do it after next Monday,
Yeah.
or next Monday too, if they lose to the Rams.
Exactly. So, oh boy. We got Justice Cleveland, sports director extraordinaire, WEAU 13 News, joining us. Switching it up here just a little bit because I mean this is still a busy time right now. But let's start off with some football, shall we? Because we finished up level 2, round 2. Would you call it round 2 or level 2?
Level 2.
Level 2. That's what I thought. So, level 2.
Why? I someday I'll find the explanation why they're not regionals and sectionals in football. But
Yeah. So we finished that up last Friday and such, and we had some local teams bowing out. Regis fell,
Yes.
Menominee fell, so we Chippewa Falls fell,
Stanley Boyd
fell.
Pepin-Alma, CFC. Yeah. So it unfortunately for some of those teams, it was the end of the line for some fine seasons.
Yeah. So but we still got some, right? We still got a couple local teams around in it, but you know, in Division 1 now it's pretty much, I mean, Neenah and Kimberly.
It's the inevitable
matchup there.
Yeah.
Kimberly, you know, advancing again. So
right. So then I don't know who's on the other side of that bracket right now.
I've got it. It's division. It's Hamilton and Verona, and then Muskego and Franklin on the bottom half.
Some good teams.
Fond du Lac and Marquette also on there too. So,
but yeah, if Kimberly, let's see what they can do. But Neenah, I mean, they shut out Chi High. Chi High, another team that bowed out, unfortunately for them, but a good run for them to get in the playoffs and get that upset in the first round.
Yep. New Richmond still alive after beating Menominee.
Yes.
I suppose in theirs, but was it 50-15? It was a high-scoring game.
Yeah, well, it was close up until like New Richmond just pulled away late, but now they get the fun task of going to Waunakee and featuring, you know, battling a team that is perennial a state contender there. So that'll be tough road to hoe for them. But you know, you play in the big rivers, you're playing tough teams all the time. You know, obviously, just coming off a game against Menominee, we'll see what they can do.
Rice Lake still alive as they will face Onalaska because my Medford fell to Onalaska, and we had some disappointed Medford fans because Medford actually beat Onalaska in week 2 in the regular season.
There's been a lot of rematches we've seen this season with teams battling teams that they either played in conference or just played non-conference there. So Rice Lake's a machine. Put up 50 points in this last one against Sparta there. That should be a fun matchup. I mean, that Rice Lake team has all the tools to make another run to state. So we'll see what they can do. But yeah, that should be a fun matchup there at Rice Lake.
Baldwin Woodville pulling off an upset against St. Croix Central.
The middle border having some success there.
Yeah, so they're going up against Somerset, who also pulled off an upset.
So you got 3 middle border teams, Rice Lake there. Then you got Baldwin Woodville and Somerset as well, both involved there. So that should be, for Baldwin, I mean, I don't think they envisioned being a 4 seed hosting in level 3. But yeah, for them to come back and beat St. Croix Central, get that win there. And then Somerset, it's always been a great program. The late Bruce Larson was a Hall of Fame coach there. You know, what he started with that team, they made those state appearances there. And that program still can, you know, just one of the best in that area. And you got to go to that Western Wisconsin. A lot of teams still alive there, having a chance to still battle for a gold ball.
I mean, it seems like there was quite a bit of upsets too, because Colby, number 1 seed, falling to St. Croix Falls, who was a 5 seed.
Yeah, that was a very unexpected one right there.
Yeah, so that sets up St. Croix Falls versus Northwestern, who you mentioned already, defeated Stanley Boyd.
That was last week. That looked like it was an 8-player game. The score was 58-48. Stanley Boyd, man, I feel for them because they had one of the most exciting offenses. Jeff Koenig's squad was, I mean, the Northwestern's a really tough team, and they gave them everything they could to score 48 points. But Northwestern, another one of those teams that you just call a machine because they're in this position almost every year. So they got to like the fact that, you know, that upset of Colby gives them a chance to face St. Croix Falls. But again, if St. Croix Falls can beat Colby, they're going to have a chance against Northwestern.
Right, exactly. Then we go move to Division 6. Cameron moves on. They defeated Cadott, so they had a Cadott season after Cadott picked up a big win in Level 1.
Yeah, I think that Cadott team's got to feel proud, though, of what they did. I think they started 0-4 and then made the playoffs, or 1-4, and to do that, and then they gave Cameron a run for it, too. So good, hats off to the Hornets. Now, Cameron and Grantsburg, that'd be a big matchup there. That'd be a fun one to see. Grantsburg beating Ladysmith 48-14. So you're going to have to earn it. On the bottom of that bracket, it's Auburndale and Stratford, just two teams that in that position a lot too. So that bracket right now looks like a tough one heading towards Camp Randall.
Yeah, Stratford blanking Mondovi.
And that's a tough Mondovi team. And for Stratford to do that, that just shows you what kind of talent you have on that team.
Boyceville still alive, though. They shut out Spring Valley, where they will face Edgar. Edgar shut out Regis in that matchup.
It's going to be a battle of two really tough defenses. I was in Boyceville on Friday night, watched them, and that defense can play tough. They got a running game. Edgar hasn't given up a touchdown since week 2 of the season.
Are you kidding me? Serious?
Yeah,
wow.
They lost week 1 to Ellsworth. That's probably the only reason they didn't get the 1 seed, is that they lost to Ellsworth. So I don't know. I mean, that was the game that people were asking me the most about, was Edgar and Boyceville. If you're Boyceville, you got to get your offense going. You got to find a way to score and get the momentum on that side and break that stigma of that team can't be scored upon. Because if Edgar's got a great running game and Edgar gets ahead, then you're going to be in trouble, because that Edgar defense is just all world. But Boyceville's got a chance. They got a puncher's chance. And like I said, if they can get some momentum early, get in the end zone, be the anti-Packers, it might help them a lot against this Edgar team. And Cashton and Bangor on the bottom there for the rivalry there that between those two teams. So we'll see who can get on the other part of that bracket and get another step closer to state.
We had upset an 8-man too, and I was actually talking to Brandon about this, and he's got a lot of people asking him about this game.
Thorpe, of course. Yeah. I mean, he's on the billboard when you drive by. Home of Brandenburg.
Thorpe defeating Gilman, which I think surprised a lot of people there. But Thorpe, had a good season too, so maybe it shouldn't be that big a surprise. But Gilman was just kind of a machine.
Yeah, Gilman
season.
Gilman, I get hats off to them. Another great season. Rosemeyer does such a good job with those teams when they were 11-man and now 8-man. But Thorpe just finding a way, found a way to slow them down. And you see these scores as we get a little closer, they get a little lower in scoring than they do. But now you got to match up against McDonald, who pulled off the upset of number 1 Clayton. So Thorpe or the Max or Cardinals, we got some old, what was the Cloverwood?
Oh, yeah.
It's the old Cloverwood there. Yeah, we got a chance for those two teams to see which one can go to state.
I might be going out on a limb here, but I think Brandon might be at that game.
I gotta imagine it's gonna be at Stanley Boyd. So if anybody looking for a great game, that'll be on Friday night at Stanley Boyd. Thorpe versus McDonald. That
one decides who goes to state.
Exactly. So you got that's they only have 3 levels in 8 players. So they have a chance to punch their ticket. So it's great to know that we will have somebody from our area there at state being represented for the championship. And I believe that's in Wisconsin Rapids. So that'll be a fun one. I'm trying to figure out which game I'll be going to, because that might be the closest one. That probably is the closest one. So that'll probably be me or somebody else for us. That we'll be there. I know that for sure.
Definitely. So we got that going on. We also have state volleyball that starts this week, or at the end of this week, in Green Bay over there. We had Division 2 Rice Lake got the 4 seed for this one. They're going up against number 1 seeded Xavier.
That's be a tough matchup for them, but we look at Rice Lake. They played in the Big Rivers. How many Big Rivers teams were still playing?
Yeah, Memorial got to right to the, was it sectional championship?
In the sectionals alone, I think there was still 4 or 5.
Memorial and North were going at each other.
So you had Memorial and North. Hudson was also in the sectional. River Falls was also in the sectional. And then you throw, so there was 5 teams, and Chi High could have easily been there as well. Yeah. So River Falls has been playing those teams all conference season.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of been the formula for Rice Lake. I meant Rice Lake. But River Falls too, because River Falls is going to state as well. But Rice Lake's formula has been, they play this tough D1 schedule.
Yeah.
And D2 schedule and move in there and show it. And the Shepleys are all world athletes. Elena and Ellie Shepley are D1 caliber athletes that when you get them on the volleyball court, any court, anywhere they're at, are just great. And that helps the Rice Lake. And I'm not discounting everybody else on that team,
Right.
but you throw them into that mix, and yeah. So congratulations to the Warriors there.
Absolutely. You mentioned River Falls. They are the 8th seed in Division 1. They're going up against Divine Savior Holy Angels. That one's on Thursday. Rice Lake plays on Friday, it looks like, too. And then St. Croix Falls is a 2 seed. They'll play on Friday. They're going up against Cuba City.
All right. St. Croix Falls getting the win over McDonald. Just an impressive win for them. And hats off again to the McDonald Max for the runs that they made. 3 straight trips to state.
Man.
And another sectional final.
Yep.
Moving down a division to Division 3 and just having a chance and almost got a chance to get back to state again there. And then Eau Claire Memorial as well. This team has just been building and building and building since Nichols took over as head coach. And this, it's not the culmination because I'm sure that, they still want a chance to get to state. But these were all the seniors were her freshmen when she started. And she said that when we talked to her after it. And for them to get this chance and be on the verge of going to state, that shows you how well she's coached that team up.
Yeah, absolutely. Really quick on soccer, because Hudson actually fell, so we got Somerset, kind of like maybe our only soccer one that's going at state there. So
a lot of our soccer teams went out in sectionals, but Memorial and Hudson battle each other every year, and either one of those teams could probably be going to state almost every other year too. So
right. And then I know we had a lot of representation at state cross country. Bloomer had both teams there. Girls finished second. The boys finished 5th in team over there. So I know, that was a heck of a season for Blue Gold Cross or for Bloomer cross country.
The boys finished 5th. The girls finish 2nd, and with a team that had, I believe it was 4 freshmen and 2 juniors, 3 freshmen and 2 juniors, just to do what they did. Carla Favilla, their head coach, doing a great job of, for both teams.
Yeah.
To get there. I mean, it was a big moment for Bloomer cross country, and it was really fun to see. I mean, that state cross country there's so many emotions going around there with those teams and those competitors, and not easy conditions to be running in. So yeah, congratulations to all the teams that went down there and competed and did a great job.
Blue Gold wise football, they fell to lacrosse. Lacrosse, one of the best, not just in the WIAC, but in the country, Division 3 football teams over there. They're already going to be wrapping up the 2 more games, and then they got Stout coming up this week.
So you got
offense has got to be head on a swivel. It could be like Stout shootouts in that.
Yeah, I mean, for the Blue Golds, what you've liked, the positives have been that they've come out, taken the lead in their last 2 games. Obviously, haven't been able to hold on to it, but you see again. I talked about it last week. The baby steps, unfortunately, I don't know if you want. I'm sure Rob Eric wishes they were bigger than baby steps, but they probably are in his eyes because he's seeing more and more what they can do. And I think Stout, that's going to be an emotional game. Yeah. Stout's got a crazy powerful offense. Blue Golds have been playing against crazy powerful offenses pretty much the whole season. So. Yeah, the I-94 rivalry, that'll be at Carson Park. You can watch the game on 13.2 if you want to, if you can't get there. But the kickoff, I believe, is a 1:10 kickoff. So,
and that's the final home game, too.
Home game, and then they head off to Whitewater for the next one. So, it should be fun. I think the Blue Golds, after last year's big loss to Stout, would like to go out there and kind of find a way to make that one a little closer and somehow find a way to get the win. Of course, Clay Birmingham and Stout would love to keep the trophy, the I-94 trophy on that side.
We also had hockey actually start their season too for the Blue Golds. Both men's and women's picking up victories, and kind of, I mean, it technically is an upset, but 14 ranked men's hockey upset number 13 Augsburg.
Right.
So in overtime too. So that season's underway already.
Those 2 teams. Potential NCAA tournament teams there always, and I think starting off the season in the right way, and coming off of that, got to talk about the Badgers hockey team going over to Minnesota, getting the sweep. Like Hastings doing so far so good for his
2 weeks in a row now. He has swept. That team has swept a ranked opponent.
Yeah, this is maybe he's found something, and I don't want to. What Granado did there was great, but Hastings has unlocked something in these players that. Right now, I mean, it's really early in the season, but they're showing some fire and getting the victories.
Because there wasn't a whole lot of expectations for this, I don't think, for this men's team. And look what he's done so far. And it's like, okay, it's almost kind of like taking a page maybe off of the Packers, where after the Bears, like, okay, we're drinking the Kool-Aid now. Here we go. I don't want to do that with but I mean, come on, these are really impressive last couple weeks.
Right,
for
and
Mike
Minnesota
Hastings.
is, that's your biggest rival right there.
Mm-hmm.
And to go into their house, get
Yep.
the sweep, that's got to be something that those players are probably just walking on cloud nine.
Yep.
Obviously, knowing there's a lot of work to be done, but that's a good way.
Yeah.
To really jumpstart your season.
Absolutely. That's easily probably the biggest positive from Wisconsin sports this past weekend over there too. So I do want to give a shout out to, because I know cross country for the Blue Golds too. They wrapped up WIAC championships. The women's finished second. Schultz won the individual one over there too. So shout out to all those teams too there too. So, but plus we got men's basketball's already starting at Duluth, Minnesota Duluth. Did I see? I think.
Oh, we're at that. There was exhibition games. Scott went over and played Green Bay. Can I give a shout out? I know they're probably sleeping, but to us, the sports scene crew for the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. This is really the busiest 2 weeks in the fall season. And those guys went out there and just ran around, not even just guys, everybody that's involved to help us get these shows put on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. There's a lot of stuff to cover, and they have been rock stars out there doing that. So a big shout out to everybody involved with Sports Scene 13 at WEAU.
There you go. Well said. Big time shout out there. Studs. Part of our studs and
duds,
right?
Definitely
I like that. So before I let you go, we got a few minutes left here though, Justice. A couple things I want to quick hit up. So Badgers fell to Ohio State football. It was close for a while though. I mean, they were hanging around, and I was kind of reading some of the writers who cover the game, and it almost sensed, or the feeling I got was it was kind of a moral victory, because there was some positive. Hey, defense hung around, they kept them in the game. Braylon Allen got hurt, so that obviously affected offense there a little bit. Obviously not everybody's big into moral victories and that sort of thing, but they did finish under the 14.5,
right?
There too. So, but I mean, 24-10. Could you take finally? It almost felt like justice from some people out there, even though with a loss, they felt a little bit better about this Badger football team. Would you?
I think so.
Is that accurate?
I think because you saw the defense really do what they needed to do to keep them in the game, and then the offense, obviously, you didn't get as many points as you would want, but was doing something without major cogs. You're missing You're missing your starting quarterback and starting running back,
and you missed out on opportunities early in the game too.
Right.
So
I think you can see maybe turning. Maybe this is where you turn the page and start changing things up from what last year was. So I think so. I think this team, again, expectations are always, I think, way too high when you have a guy coming in his first year.
Right.
You can have some guys who come in and change a program like that, but I think you can't expect it to be completely, okay, now they're national title contenders. There wasn't enough pieces, I don't think, for this Wisconsin team to come in this year and be like that, but you're still battling for a conference title, a or whatever you want to call it, subdivision title. It'll be gone after this next year, but yeah, I mean, you still got a chance. So come out the next couple games here: Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, Minnesota. All winnable games.
Oh yeah,
the Minnesota game could loom more large. Somehow, it always seems to have something on the line.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could run the table and make a change, just make a run at that West title.
Yeah, never know. There's still a lot to play for in these last.
You would love for them to come out, go to Indiana, and just take care of business, because we really haven't seen that from this Badger team. So if they could do that, go out and just have a big game, that would really do a lot for them. Because then you have 2 home games against Northwestern and Nebraska,
right,
and ended at not TCF, whatever it is now.
Yep. Minnesota,
yeah, whatever their stadium is called.
Okay. Final thing for you here, Justice. Was announced right before you're done here, but Rashawn Gary got that new contract extension. Kind of, there was a lot of thought that would get done at some point this year. Kind of a typical Packer way, right? To kind of get it done in the middle of the season,
year,
sort
on
of
a
thing.
Monday.
Yeah, right. I mean, deserving. So, I mean, Rashawn. I mean, we had a couple Packers fans saying overpaid already. But, I think it's well-deserving. I mean, you got a guy – I mean, there was a lot of people already calling him a bust the day he was drafted.
Oh, yeah. Yep. They didn't even look like – not even on an NFL film and field. So, yeah. I think it's – yeah. I mean, I don't even know if he's at 100% yet. He came back, was on a limited snap count for a long time. But I think when he's playing at his highest level, he is can be one of the best in the league. So, I think you got to shore up some of those guys because I think they're starting to get a little older. Actually, in the interior there was, Kenny Clark's not old, but he's getting older.
Yep.
Preston is, how long has he got left in a Packers uniform?
There's some talk, could he be traded by tomorrow's
right.
deadline?
I mean, when he made that sack there, that was probably the first time I'd said his name in quite a while. So we'll see. Yeah, and that's trade deadline coming up too. That'll be interesting to see what the Packers do with that.
Yeah. Mike Wall said about Rashawn, foundational piece of this rebuild, absolutely fantastic player and worker. So
he's got an engine, and he can work inside. But I think he's also a guy who can pursue very well. He's a beast out there. So I think that's like I said, that's a guy that you want on that line for a lot more time, and a guy who's worked hard to get where he's at.
And you just hope, and we've seen glimpses and flashes of this, but you hope, next year or in a couple of years, it's him and Lucas Van Ness as being those anchors at the edge there. Van Ness make it a couple of, I know he had that batted ball, yesterday and such, but we all know he's a physical specimen out there and he's got the strength. But again, he's a rookie and, kind of like Rashawn Gary.
Exactly. That's what Rashawn Gary was. He was a piece of clay that you want to mold into what you have now, which is a guy who just goes out there and is just a beast. So I think Lucas Van Ness has that possibility to be that guy too.
I still go picture how he ran down Justin Fields in week 1.
Right.
Not many edge rushers can do that.
No. So I know a lot of people the stats aren't completely there. Like where you want, no, he's not Lawrence Taylor racking up 15 sacks so far or something like this.
Right.
But he's any other team, if you wouldn't have signed him, easily would have taken him, and he's going to be in his prime years here coming up. So that's
absolutely
what you want on your team.
Yeah, he's not a Nick Bosa or anything like that at this point, but he's, I would say, a top 10 edge rusher right now.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so. I think so.
Definitely. I'm glad they got it done, and now we'll see what's next. I don't think they make any moves. Do you? By trade deadline tomorrow?
Unless somebody really wants to get out of there that we don't know about.
Yeah.
But we'll find. I really don't see them unless somebody makes them a great offer.
Right.
Which I think at that point, somebody's offering you something, go for it. Then.
Right. If somebody offers you a second-round pick for Preston Smith, do you do it?
I think you do it.
Yeah. I think you do. I think
you have younger guys that you're trying to get into those positions anyway. So
I don't know if anybody's really on the offensive side anybody's willing to trade for. Aaron Jones maybe, but that would be the only one. But I don't. I'd be sad, but I would guess understand it.
If you went, for Aaron Jones, him going to a contender, I would be fine with that. But he's a guy who I love in that locker room and has been such a positive force for that Packers team. And in some times when things weren't very positive, even, during the Rodgers stuff, it was, you could count on Aaron Jones to be there and be positive. So, I would hate to see him leave.
Yeah. So, tomorrow we'll find out. And Goody has made deal. I remember, I know it was his first year, but maybe kind of a similar situation. Clinton Dix, Ty Montgomery. And Ty Montgomery was because after that Rams debacle there too. But he has made a couple of deadline deals.
Devondre Campbell would be another guy that would be a possibility. He's healthy now.
Yeah.
But it's still a good player.
Yep.
These are good players. It's not saying I wouldn't want them on the team. It's just like if these are the guys that you could see teams eyeing up saying, okay, we could use somebody like this. But again, it's the NFL trade deadline where we've had a little flurry cost a couple of years, but usually there's not a whole lot that gets done.
It's not like baseball.
No, not
even close.
You'll go years where nothing happens.
Right. Or even the NBA or anything like that.
Right.
So, but Quay Walker, it sure seems like he's trending up in a direction that's like he's going to be a focal point of this defense too.
Yeah.
Like a fixture on
You'd
this.
Love him to just kind of make those plays instead of being right there on the cusp of making the plays, like the interception yesterday.
Yeah.
And not make the penalties.
Right.
Get his head on straight sometimes. But he's really a big part. He's out there all the time.
I think he's a piece that you can kind of move, kind of like a Rashawn Gary too, where you can be a little flexible with.
Yeah, you get
blitzing, coverage, that sort of
stuff. Those linebacker, safety, cornerback hybrids that have kind of come into the league. And when you have those guys that can do all those things, it's pretty amazing.
And I saw Rasul Douglas said afterward too that he mentioned that Quay Walker apologized to the whole team like he thought it was his fault that they lost. And, for a second-year guy, for all the talk about having his – I mean, that kind of maybe shows a little bit of growth or maturity there too. And Rasul's like, dude, if we had like 11 of you we would be 7-0.
Right. I
So,
was going to say, from watching that game, I don't think Quay Walker was the reason they lost that game at
no,
all. I mean,
no.
you wish you would have made a couple of those plays, like the interception, but
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, I have no idea. Looking at that, why he would think he was the
Yeah.
reason they lost.
Yeah. And I mean, Rasul seems like he's being the vocal presence right now in
Right.
that locker room. So,
Yeah. Well,
maybe-
Quay too. I mean, that's the thing is like that makes you feel good that he's at least like he's taking it so personally that they're losing that
Mhm.
he's not just letting this thing. Oh, it's just another loss. Hasn't accepted it. That
Right.
this locker room still wants wins.
Right. Yep. All right, dude. Appreciate you stopping by, man.
Oh, no problem.
Appreciate it. All the insight, good stuff. Keep up the amazing work. Sports Scene 13. Shout out again
Yeah. So
for all the
once
local
again,
coverage.
yep.
So we appreciate that, bud. Thanks for stopping in. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll start to wrap things up here. We got about a half hour left, but we'll be back in just a few words. Are you ready to make a real difference in your community? Well, here's your chance with Chippewa Valley Habitat for Humanity, where they believe that everyone deserves a decent place to call home. For decades, Habitat for Humanity has been working tirelessly to build affordable, safe, and sustainable homes for families in need. But you know what? They can't do it alone. Picture a world where children have a stable roof over their heads, where families can create lasting memories, and where communities flourish. That's the vision they're working towards. And Chippewa Valley Habitat for Humanity wants you to be a part of it. Whether you're a skilled carpenter or simply just have a heart full of goodwill, there's a place for you at Habitat for Humanity. Join them as a volunteer, donate, or support their mission in any way you can, including shopping at the store. Your support means everything, and to families whose lives you're helping transform. Visit cvh4h.org or stop by the Restore at 145 North Claremont Avenue in Eau Claire to learn how you can get involved. Habitat for Humanity, building homes, building hope, and building a brighter future for everyone. Join in and let's build a world where everyone has a place to call home. All right, we got about what time? We got 8:37 ish around here this morning. You know, one thing, and I believe if I looked up next gen stats and such, but one thing I was thinking about after the game yesterday, and I'd like to see the numbers of where everything's at because I don't know exactly where these numbers are, but it was something I was thinking about late last night, early this morning. And I go back to our conversation we had with Packers reporter Rob Demovsky from ESPN before the season started. And he had a piece, we'd asked him about, Matt LaFleur's offense, right? Quote unquote. And he kind of chuckled. He's like, well, I'm actually, dropping an article about it and, kind of like comparing what, maybe like the 49ers or that style of offense tends to do compared to what LaFleur has done under Aaron Rodgers and where it's different. And one of the things that was different about it was the thought was that maybe there's going to be more throws middle of the field this year with this particular style of offense. And this is where I want to look at the numbers because I could just be generalizing it, and maybe I'm just I'm so focused on certain areas and I've got some blinders on. But it just seems like a lot, at least in the beginning of the games, there's a lot of throws on the boundaries, on the flats. And I'm really curious to know how much is Green Bay really targeting the middle of the field with some of their plays. And I maybe I'll try to do this and try to see if I can find those numbers and such this week. But it just I don't know. It seems like, and then when we did target, and I know I'm just using the game from yesterday. The times we did target was when, trying to play a little catch up and you're moving the ball down a little bit quicker. And then you saw, those guys in those zones and those spots in those zones and open that. But I don't know. It just seems like, and I wonder if I can figure out a way. I'm sure there is. I need a staff to look this up. But I wonder if there's a way I can figure out, like comparing it to first and second halves here too, because it just seems like there's a lot of throws, again, to the boundaries, to the flats, to the sidelines. And is Green Bay attacking the middle of the field, up the seams enough? Are they doing it more than the years prior? Because that was one of the things, like they didn't really attack the middle of the field that much. And the thought is that they were going to this year. And I got to look at those numbers because that was something I was thinking about. See, I think about this stuff all the time when I'm trying to get to sleep or early in the morning. I'm trying to look at different points of view and in different areas in this thing. And that's one of them that was kind of, I was trying to, without even looking up the official statistics, and because it's kind of like baseball now. You got all these stats for every little thing out there. So I'll have to do a little bit of a deep dive out there. But that's especially like the tight ends. And I know there's been in the early part of the season, the beginning parts of the season, we saw Musgrave going up the seams and then Love missing him, right? We've seen those throws where Love has missed him. And maybe that's why, now I'm just spitballing here, but is that why we're potentially not seeing a lot of throws across the middle of the field because that's where Love gets in danger the most. His accuracy is off the most. He's, forcing it a little bit. So are they trying to hone it in and be like making some easy throws to the outsides, to the flats? But I feel like, are we not utilizing the middle of the field that much? And if we're not, I want to see that more. We talk about yak, yards after catch, and getting the ball into your playmakers' hands and letting them get to work, using them in space, right? Well, one way to do that is making sure they got enough space to roam. I mean, for crying out loud, Aaron Jones' one touchdown catch came from that little slant across the middle. I want to see that a little bit more. I want to see that stuff a little bit more. And I feel like we're not. And again, I'll have to look at the numbers. I'll have to look at the statistics and the stats in that. That's definitely one area I think potentially they could get better at. It's just something I was kind of spitballing in the wee hours of the morning and late evening hours there, because you have performances like yesterday and you have performances like the last few weeks. Maybe I'm the only one that's like this, but you sit there and you try to figure out the why. And you're looking at photos and you're rewinding clips and you see clips on the internet and all that stuff, and you're just trying to figure out the why. And really it's a bunch of answers to the question why. Right? It's a bunch of questions out there. So, well, yeah. I don't, back to the trade deadline thing. Would they? I'm trying to think of some players. Would they move on from? Would they trade? And defensively, they're not trading Jair. They're not trading Kenny Clark. They're not trading Rashawn Gary. They're not trading, they're like Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, or any of those guys. I mean, if they were to move on from somebody's, maybe a Devondre Campbell, maybe a Preston Smith. Those would maybe be a couple of guys out there that potentially they would move on from. I mean, if you do that by tomorrow's trade deadline, you're pretty much signaling, yep, it's officially done, at this point in time. Now, maybe I shouldn't necessarily say that because, again, I think maybe the best outlook for this Packers team for this season is just like what our good buddy Justice Cleveland said. And it's like the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions were what? 1-6 last year? They traded TJ Hawkinson, to which everybody's like, yep, they're folding it in. One of your best offensive players, you're folding it in. Maybe it wasn't playing up to that level, but there was a question like, is it just kind of wasting it in Detroit? And then, boom, second half, turned the corner, got hot, went into that final week, needed a little bit of help. Was it Seattle had to lose, and then if Detroit would have beaten Green Bay, they would have got in. Well, Seattle won, and Detroit still beat Green Bay. But then entered the offseason with all the momentum in the world, all the excitement, all the hype. And they're playing well this year. They're going to win the division this year. That is the best outcome at this point in time for Green Bay is if Green Bay follows a similar pattern to what the Lions did last year. Maybe you sell off a couple players, who knows, but just to, these final games here, ride some momentum. And I'm sure there's going to be some fans saying, no, we want the higher pick. We want the higher draft pick. We're at 2-5. We want a higher draft pick now. We want a new quarterback. Don't win any more games. Get a top 3 pick. Get a quarterback. I'm sure there's going to be some out there. But franchise-wise, coaches, maybe even the players, they got to, I would imagine, are probably thinking, okay, if we're gonna miss the postseason, ideally, you probably want something similar to what the Lions were like last year. Really rough first half. Dan Campbell's job was in question, whether he was going to be, finishing out the season or not. Flip of a switch. Hottest team in the NFL towards the end of the season. Now probably going to win the division this year. Maybe that's what we kind of have to have as a goal for Packers fans. Maybe that's what we should be looking at now. Is something like that. I think the difference, though, between those two scenarios, one of the differences between them with those scenarios is Jared Goff was a little bit more established. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's a veteran quarterback. You kind of knew what you had with Jared Goff. You can kind of build around him, a style of offense, do what he does best. Kind of still an unknown right now with Jordan Love. Let's just be real. There's some mechanical issues, there's some fundamental issues, there's some, is the game slowed down for him, vision. There's a difference between the quarterbacks at that point in time. Unless Jordan starts to kind of all come together here. But that would be the one big difference between the Lions from last year and the Packers from this year. You kind of knew what you had with Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, I think, has gotten actually a little bit better too. And I think that's a big part because of the job Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, has done, and the defense or the offense that they built around him to make sure that, he's successful. If Jared Goff is successful, the offense is successful. You're not fitting a square peg into a round hole. And right now, that's kind of up in the air in terms of Green Bay with their quarterback play. All right, let's take our final break here. And then we'll start to wrap things up on this Monday morning. Bucks are back in action tonight. They bounced back from that ugly game last night, going up against the Heat of Miami. We'll discuss coming up next. Wrapping things up here this morning. Bucks back in action tonight against the Miami Heat. You can catch that game at 105.1 FM and 790 AM. Tip-off at 7 p.m. tonight. Listen to the game. Watch the World Series. Game 3 tonight. Bucks hoping to bounce back after their performance last night. 127 to 110 loss to the Atlanta Hawks. Damian Lillard just 6 points. He was 2 of 12 from the field. Those 2 field goals coming from the three-point land. So he's looking to bounce back from his offensive performance. Bucks also turnovers. 23 turnovers from the Bucks yesterday. 6 of those coming from Dame Time himself, Damian Lillard. So I got to clean some stuff up, and hopefully they'll bounce back. And it sounds like Chris Middleton will play. Reason he didn't play, nothing to be too concerned about. It sounds like it was part of the plan in a back-to-back game. They sat him out in the first of a back-to-back series there. So the plan is that Chris Middleton will be back in the starting lineup and playing in the game tonight. L got game 3 of the World Series tonight. Tied up at 1 apiece. Pivotal game 3, 7:03. For first pitch tonight between Texas and Arizona as the series moves to the desert in Arizona over there. But when you look at the first couple games here, you got game 2 where Arizona picked up a 9-1 victory. Bats coming alive for Arizona in that game. Big win on the road in Texas too for the Diamondbacks to take that. To take that. So they lost game 1, went to the Rangers 6-5. So I thought Texas was going to be able to take this down in 5 or 6, but man, Arizona's showing some fight. They're showing some grit right now. Elsewhere in baseball, if you were wondering about a Craig Counsell update, not a whole lot out there except for apparently he was given permission to interview with the Cleveland Guardians. So, well, I think if Counsell goes to Cleveland, then I think that's even that's more of a worse, PR nightmare for Mark Anasio and the Brewers than if Counsell were to go to the Mets. That's worse. That's like a lateral move. But I just saw Rashawn Gary's contract. So it looks like comes in as at number 5 in terms of about I mean, you could look at it different ways: average per year, guaranteed money, total value. You could look at different rankings there, but about average. Look, about the 5th comes in about 5th highest paid edge rusher. So okay, it's not the highest paid. It's not top 3. I'm glad they got it done. I'm good. Heck yeah. Build around him now. We'll see if any moves will get made before the trade deadline tomorrow. Maybe a couple small ones here or there across the league, but I don't think anything's going to come to fruition. That's going to be a big time move. Like remember a couple years ago when the Rams got Von Miller and such. I don't think, but hey, it just takes one team. Never say never. I mean, you got the 49ers now who have lost 3 in a row. The Chiefs lost in Denver last night or yesterday, and I know Patrick Mahomes had the flu. But you look at the AFC, things are getting kind of interesting, kind of tight up there. Miami, Baltimore, Jacksonville, and Kansas City all tied with 6-2 records. Those division leaders right now in the AFC all at 6-2. Philly, the only team with 1 loss. Shout out to Philly too, because I kind of wondered heading into this year, would they kind of fall down just a little bit? They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their defensive coordinator. They still got a fairly young head coach. And you thought, okay, I thought at least a little bit. I'm like, okay, are they going to take a little bit of a step back? Younger coach, loses his top coordinators. No. But that just tells you the type of program they got going on there in Philly. So shout out to Philly. Philly at 7-1. Dallas dominating the Rams 5-2, setting up for quite the game coming up here. Detroit 5-2, but now with Kirk Cousins with that torn Achilles, Minnesota's at 4-4. You kind of wonder how the rest of their season is going to go here. Atlanta falling. I mean, the NFC South, you've got Atlanta and New Orleans at 4-4. And then the West, as we mentioned, with the 49ers dropping their last 3. Seattle, first place right now, 5-2. Shout out to Pete Carroll, Geno Smith. Still getting it done. All right, that's going to do it for us. DP up next. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your Monday. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning, just past 6. Talk to you then.